Alright, so that's what we ended up with on this here. I wasn't able to really get a camera in here to shoot it while I was sanding it, but I figured I'll just spray bomb this real quick just to get it covered up for flash rust since we got rain. You know, give it a little primer. Can't get to look too fancy. I'm not looking for, you know, it's going to be underneath something. It doesn't look awful. You notice I'm not really caring much how I spray it. I'm trying to shoot it all even or anything. It looks like there's ribs there, huh? You know, it's alright. And then this thing ended up looking alright. Try to get in here. I can try and spray it while I'm holding my camera, right? This is not for a right-handed person right here. Working on this thing is a pain. Down in this little gully. That's kind of how that looks. Not bad. I mean, it looks like I could clean that up a little bit more and make it look like it was almost never done. You know, down in there, once it's got the caulking and the rust holes finished up on the side, ought to be looking pretty good. But yeah, this looks fine from what I'm trying to do. And I'll get through here and I'll sand all this down. Then I'm going to put a good coat of primer on all of this. That's why I'm just shooting a spray can on here for now. I'm going to sand all this down. I got a sand over there. I'm just going to prime a whole bunch of stuff all at once with the urethane primer. You know, the DTM, some guys call it. I don't know. Urethane primer. I guess I'm done. Talk to you guys in the next portion. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and run the thing down again with the block, with the DA, and with what I'm going to use. I'll show you some of the ideas I use. I don't do this all the time. Only on these flat long panels if I really want it to look straight. I'm just going to show you guys how I do it. I may not make this one really straight, but when I want to make it really nice, what I'll use is I'll use this, and I'm not going to do the whole thing with this. Now, a lot of people go, whoa, wait, you got to do the whole thing with that to get it straight. Well, what I'll do is I'll just scratch over it. I'll show you. So I'm basically, you know, you crisscross scratch like you normally do a hand block. You know, crisscross scratch like that. Okay. And then you find your lows that are significant, like here. And then what I'll do is I'll just reference that in my head when I'm DAing it. So then I'll know to go over the parts that are higher here a little bit more, and then I'll kind of feather them into these. So just trying to make sure that I, you know, still get those lows out if I'm going to try and get it real straight with the DA. And literally, you can get it really straight with the DA by using those things. I did this whole section here, and I don't feel much going on. I feel a couple little spots. But like I said, I'm not going to try to get all that stuff out. And then on this, I did the same thing. In that area there where I did the repair, I ran it over with the longboard just to kind of get a feel for what's going on. I'm feeling stuff. I just want to feel it, what's going on with it. And then I'll take the DA and do the final stuff with the DA just because it's faster. So sometimes I'll use that as a reference point. The longboard. Not very often. I mean, I didn't even do that anywhere on the whole Mustang build. All I did was just DA everything because it had a little bit of roundness to it. Sorry about that. I was choking on my swallow here. But anyway, so I just reference it with that, and then I'll still do my final work with the DA, but I'm just kind of using that thing to help me see it better what I'm doing, and so that I'm not, just randomly just pushing on the DA. And that'll give me a little idea that I need to sand this area a little bit more than the other, and just so you can kind of see how it works. I went over this again, same thing. I need to do this panel, that one. I'm just going to use the longboard on those just a little bit. I'm going to tell you, this is a very, very little that I'm doing with it. I'm just using it to make the job go a little bit faster. So I'll just take it, I just run the whole thing. Literally, I spent about probably 2 minutes on this panel right here with that. That's it, you know. And then exposed these high spots. Obviously, I didn't put very much primer on this one last time. I didn't want to put, you know, 2 light coats, and I think I had it thinned down or something. So I'm burning through here, and I've got low here, and it's just a very, very minor amount of below. It looks like a lot, but it's not much. So I'm just going to hit it with glazing again. You know, this one, like I knew. This one I knew. I said, like this one I said, I know I need to do this one again. I know I need to do that one again. I know I need to do that one again. The doors, I'm guessing, or probably maybe this door I have to do a little bit more to. The nose I have to do more to, and the long panel over there. But the corners, I think, are pretty good. Probably don't need to do a longboard on those. I'm just doing it on these flat areas just to kind of double check everything to make sure I got all my loads. In which I didn't. I knew I didn't when I did it with the DA. So it just helps it make it a little bit easier. I'm not doing the whole thing with the longboard. I'm not going to sand the putty with the longboard. I'm just going to put it in the low areas, and then I'll do it again. And even without the longboard, it'll still be pretty darn straight. So I didn't get a chance to get you guys involved with priming all this stuff. Kind of was running short on time, but got all this all primed up. Doesn't look the greatest. It's not supposed to. It's not gonna. This is in here. This is all gonna get covered up. The only part you're gonna see is what's underneath, and that's kind of looking upward. So we've got filler on some of this area here underneath, and but this is all primed out really good. We're just gonna put some glazing over all this stuff just to make it not look so bad. If somebody ever lifts this thing up, it doesn't look terrible. So just gonna slap some glazing on there, and so I primed. This is all sanded now. I just gotta go run through and do some touch-ups on it. Then these have the final coat of primer on them. There's a few waves in them. I'm not going to get them perfect because there's a lot of, like, there's high spots on the supports, and that's really hard to fix. So, like, they're high, sticking out, so you kind of feather up into those, so it's gonna leave a little bit of a wave. They probably, you know, originally they had that. So this side's on its final prime too. This is all ready. Just gonna do a little bit of blocking here, and then the rest of it's gonna get just sanded. Final sanding, and that's ready. So anyway, we're gonna move on with some of this stuff here. Maybe I'll do this here up the top and put you guys up and let you watch in high speed or something. stuff. My video camera was doing weird stuff. Okay, so this is what you use when you really don't care how it looks. I mean, you're not looking for like perfect. This stuff here, this is this primer putty. This is perfect for finishing this out. I'm just going to use a little bit of that. What do you guys think? Yeah, I only get this stuff out when it's kind of like a last resort, or it's just something that, you know, you really don't care that much about. You just use it to fill. The thing that's nice about the primer putty is it's very, very easy to sand. So like to catch up these little corners, a little bit of hand sanding, and it takes care of it all. But it shrinks into them, and it's still, you'll still see it, but it'll just look a little bit better than it does. But it's so fast to sand that I figured, you know what, it's about the right product for doing this. You know, like I said, I don't usually use it. You can see this tube is pretty old. I prefer the polyester glazing is better. But this stuff, like I said, it's for something that, you know, this area is not something I really care that much about looking perfect or anything. I just want it to look a little bit better than it does right now. So I'll do a little bit of this stuff. Shove some of this stuff on here. In the worst of the pits, just so it doesn't look terrible. Anybody ever use this stuff? I used this stuff many years ago. Before they even had polyester glazing, they had, you know, stuff similar to this. They had 3M's brand of it. I'm not the biggest fan of 3M right now. Anybody else feeling the same way? The masks thing. It's not really 3M, it's the distributors. But, you know, honestly, they should be knowing what their distributors were doing. They were selling masks to other countries, you know, highest bidder and stuff like that. You know, that's not cool. And I'm sure they were aware of it, but they, you know, said they weren't aware of it. Who knows? Never was a big fan of 3M. It's too big. Let's slam a little bit of this in here. The rest of this I'm just going to do by hand sand. That's why I use the spray can. So I'm just going to do a little bit of hand sand on the rest of this. You know, maybe with some 150. This stuff sands, like I said, a couple strokes and it's gone. That's one thing that's nice about it. Just doesn't feel very good. Shrinks a lot. But it'll kind of smooth that stuff out a little bit. It's not going to make it look good, but it's going to smooth it out. Alright, I'll bring you guys back in a little bit. Alright, we'll see how much better it looks after that's done. Alright, so I got these two panels prepped. Somebody wanted to see me spray primer. I'm not sure really why, but we're going to use on this Iwata Air Gunza, which is Gunman actually rated it as the best primer gun. I was like, oh, use one of those too, huh? And Iwata Air Gunza, we're going to be at about 25 pounds. All the way out with the material, all the way open with the fan, and I'm just going to spray primer on this. and then we'll check it out. Tamco Galva Prime. I'm not sure what the part number is. That's what she calls it. We're going to shoot this with that. I got it mixed 40. It's a 4-to-1 mix with a 10% used acetone. So. I'm sure you guys can see that okay. Alright, gonna let that dry for a little bit. I'll shoot another coat. It is pretty cold out right now, so it's pretty slow drying. Want to get this done. Couple little runs because it's so cold. It's cold like this, it doesn't like to go on smooth unless I put it on really dry, and I actually reduced it a little bit too much. I got enough to do one more coat, so we're gonna let it set for a minute. See if I can get one more out of this. I don't know. That's it. Ought to look pretty good. Just got enough on there at least. Little running guy up in the corner over here above the door handle, but fatty. Other than that, it looks fine. Nothing fancy about it, just priming stuff. This stuff, if you overload it, it doesn't pinhole, so not that you should, but it's a pretty good primer. Some of the other ones, cheaper one might pinhole or something like that if you're loading it up. Same thing with the sprays. I would say similar to polyester compared to some of the urethanes. So anyway, that's it. Alright, so I got this coated up here with glazing around this part, the sides, and then I'll sand that out, and then I'll go ahead and seam seal all this corner, and then this part's ready to go. You know, like I said, I'm just going to quickly scuff this down and paint it from here. Not looking for anything too fancy. But I want to show you guys one more thing real quick, and then I'll probably wrap this up, looks like. And this is my, I don't know what they call these, multi-use tool, or I call it a mouse sander. What it's for, one of these, they sell them at Harbor Freight. They're very cheap, less than 20 bucks. And what it's for is these little corners. So a little bit of a noise alert here. I just throw a regular size paper on it. You can cut them to size. That one's kind of worn out, but I'm just showing you it gets in all these little corners and places that you can't get to. Like if you try and sand that by hand, it'll probably take you forever, and you'll be sitting there bumping your fingers into the corners. I use it on stuff like maybe this here. I'll just sand this with it. I use it, you know, and they're not really intended for automotive, but I've even used it for like even places where there's a line that's got a corner where it's right near something where you can't really sand very good. I use it for that kind of stuff. They are a really handy tool to have. Very cheap. Just put your regular, you know, hook loop paper on it. This one's worn out. But you just put your regular hook loop paper on it, and then just use it to sand corners and edges, like inside next to this hinge. Really trying to do that with a block, you're going to be bumping into this line the whole time. It's just not going to be very fun. You're not going to get that out of there very easy. Over here on this hinge, same thing. You'll run into a problem trying to do that one. You know, some of these little corners down in here, like if I have to sand down in here, right next to the corner, having a tool like that's really handy. But yeah, I got this door here kind of sanded down. There's a lot of stuff on it. Look at, there's one right there. I got a low spot. And then this whole edge is a little bit low because you got a high right here, and it's kind of burning through there. So I'll probably just put a real light coat of glazing on there. It's like basically a thick coat of primer is what I'll put on. And then I'll just finish that up, and it's the sort of thing I'm doing right now. Anyway, that's it for this. I'll just talk to you guys in the next one. I'm going to have to wrap this one up, and then we'll start another video up here and get this one uploaded, let you guys check it out while we're getting ready to do. I got to get in there and do that. See that little corner down in there, like the very corner over there, if you see right there, that would be easier to use this sander on, like right where my finger is. You know, you can't get in there with anything else. And some of the corners down here, and you know, all those little edges and corners, that tool is fantastic for that. Just put some grit paper on there. You try and do it with your finger. You can't use anything else. It's the best tool for it. All right, talk to you next one. Please like, share, and subscribe.